before. Thank you for sharing. I'm curious to know if we have some listeners right now that they're on the fence, right? The same it is with alcohol addiction, drug addiction. You know, sometimes people don't know, then you have the functioning addicts, right? I could drink all day and I'm still functioning. So therefore I'm not an alcoholic, because a drug addict, they can't operate, right? Do you have a few, maybe 3 to 5 questions that we can ask ourselves to find out and determine, hey, do I have a food addiction or I don't? What are some things I can ask myself?
That's a really awesome question. I would say all I know is that an addiction is considered an addiction when your life has become unmanageable. That's how I understand an addiction. So people that don't feel their lives are unmanageable, they're going about their business, and even though they're drinking too much or using drugs or overeating, they feel, well, look, I'm still managing. I don't have an addiction. I don't really know what to say to somebody like that. A person has to recognize for themselves that until they recognize for themselves that they have an addiction, they're not going to want to get help. But here's the thing. Even if a person doesn't believe that they have an addiction, if they want to bring more lasting pleasure into their lives, this is a simple way to do it. Like if you're mainly getting pleasure from one area in life, expand it. Try a variety of ways to bring more pleasure into your life, and try to go up the ladder and bring more lasting pleasure in. I just recommend that whether a person admits that they're an addict or not, everybody can use more pleasure in their life, and everybody could use more lasting pleasure. So this is good for anybody to try. If you don't want to label yourself as a person with an addiction, you don't have to. And I'm personally not a believer in a person calling themselves an addict for the rest of their lives once they've been an addict. I think, people can recover. I don't consider myself an addict. I consider that I have so much joy and pleasure in my life right now that I can talk about this past experience just to, be able to help other people's souls to shine. And it helps my soul to shine by helping other people. So this is what I love to do.
Okay, but do you have, someone may be wondering, how do I know if I am overeating for the wrong reasons?
Let's see. There are certain health problems that develop for people that are overeating. If a person is finding that they're getting diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and, these are things you might want to consider, that if you don't, it's not like there's a perfect weight to be, that you have to be a certain size. But if you find that your weight is causing an arthritis, certain problems in your life, then you might want to consider more joyful ways to overcome overeating.
Are most people who are obese addicted to eating?
That's my thought. That's what I believe. Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
And also, so the book that I wrote is this memoir
You're
that I wrote.
You're talking about searching for God in the garbage, right?
Exactly, right. Okay. I know, and it's got a really interesting title, Searching for God in the Garbage. Yeah. What it's about, it's about the fact that in so many ways people have tried to throw God in the garbage. That's really what it's about. In my life, I wasn't brought up to believe in God. That's not what my father definitely didn't believe in God. And it was kind of, I consider like the Bible fairy tales and things like that. I wasn't brought up in that way. So I feel, and for many people, there's a kind of dogmatic association with the word God. So, and so I tell people the best way maybe to relate to God is relating to the part of God that's in everybody, and that's the soul. So one book that I wrote is called The Invisible Book, because so many people say, how could I believe in God? You can't see God. And so the invisible book is about so many things that we believe in that are invisible, like gravity, like electromagnetism that pulls a magnet to all the metal things, feelings, thoughts, time. There's so many things we believe in that are invisible. So why is it so far-fetched to believe that we're souls? We're spiritual beings that are clothed in bodies, and we live in a physical world. So sometimes it's hard to believe in the spiritual plane, because we don't see it. We see the physical plane around us all the time. But that's even in my children's books, I'm trying to explain that children can understand this when they're even very young, that there's so many things we believe in that are invisible. And so we can accept as well that we're spiritual beings. We're souls that need to be nourished as much as our physical bodies need to be nourished as well.
With all those things that you just mentioned that are invisible, and I'm definitely going to pick up that book, why do you find that it's so difficult? Why do we separate the soul from something to believe that's invisible?
Oh, that's such a good question. I love it. Why? Oh my gosh. Why, if we accept all those things, don't we believe in the soul? Wow. This has got me stumped. I'm going to say that, life was made to be challenging. We kind of have to struggle to see the soul. It's not so obvious. And part of the work involved the challenge of climbing the mountain. The challenge of building in life brings us great pleasure. So the challenge of discovering that we have a soul brings us a lot of joy. I'm going to say that it's not so obvious, and we have to put a little bit of work in to experience and recognize our souls. I don't know if that's a good enough answer, but I've never been asked that before. I love it. So I think it's not so obvious for a good reason. We're supposed to choose the fact that we're spiritual beings. And it's not given to us on a silver platter. We have to put a little work in to recognizing that we're spiritual beings.
All right. So on this path that you've chosen for your life's purpose, did Harvard play any part in that? And if so, like, what's one thing that you can, I guess, accredit going to Harvard and your path right now?
Amazing. I'm fascinated by your questions. I love it. Okay. Going to Harvard, what I loved about Harvard was that it was filled with ideas. It was filled with new ideas, and I loved meeting all kinds of interesting people I just read about. One amazing story about Harvard is that I was invited to this garden party with the children of all these famous people, like the Kennedys, the Rockefellers, the Moynihans, and I felt like, wow, this is where I'd always wanted to be. I've hit the top. And at that party, there was nothing really special happening. Like, all the people were just kind of looking beyond the people, looking for something else, kind of bored, like looking for more, as if there was something greater, like it wasn't the greatest. You know what I mean? So I feel like it was a big gift to kind of reach the top, what I thought was the top, and find there was nothing much up there. And the amazing thing that happened is that on this beautiful day at this garden party, all of a sudden, the storm clouds moved in, and it started pouring. A thunderstorm came down, and I felt this great joy. I said, wow, there's something more powerful than this, because these people couldn't stop the rain from coming down at this party. Like, there's something more powerful than this, Mm-hmm. And it was kind of a turning point for me of feeling there's something more. I have proof. It's true, So I feel very blessed that I got to a point where many people strive to be, and they spend a lot of time trying to get there, because there was really nothing much up there. And I realized it was another sign to me that there's something more in life than what we just see. In fact, one of my children's books is called I Want to Be Famous. It's about a boy that wants to be famous, and he becomes famous overnight because someone takes a YouTube video of him doing something funny. He becomes famous, and then he's like a real big shot, and then all of a sudden his fame is gone. Somebody else is famous instead of him. And then he learns how to keep the spotlight going your whole life is to spine the spotlight from within. If you don't have that spotlight from within, then you're always going to be seeking validation from the outside. So again, it goes back to my main point that I mainly try to instill these ideas in children so that their whole lives can be filled with happiness. They could have happiness skills from the earliest time in their life. Understand that if you nourish your soul, you'll be shining your whole life, and your life will be a joyful one. No matter what a person goes through, they can overcome it if they have the internal happiness skills.
So I Want to Be Famous. Now that sounds like another good book that I need to pick up. So I Want to Be Famous. He goes to the top, comes down, and he finds out he's got to find that spiritual thing. What was it for him?
Oh, no,
what did he find?
What he discovered was that fame wasn't all that great after all, and it doesn't last like that long. Again, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure that doesn't last. So being miserable, stuck under the blankets, he didn't feel like getting up in the morning anymore. You know, when he was no longer famous and he'd been dropped by the world. But then he realized, wait a minute, there's still something pushing me up. What is that? It's your soul that gets you up in the morning. It's that resilience. When even a person that's been through abuse or neglect in life, what gets them up in the morning? It's miraculous sometimes that a person can still get up after being through so much. What gets the person up is that miraculous soul, that piece of source energy, what some people call God, whatever you want to call it, the universal energy that helps us to get up. So it's when he began to relate to that piece in him that he could realize how to shine for the rest of his life.
How do you feel about traveling?
Traveling? Do I enjoy traveling?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I enjoy traveling and I enjoy staying home both, you know?
The greatest place that you've traveled is where?
Well, of course, I love Israel because that's where I found...
I want to go there, actually.
Yeah. It's like I found my heritage there. You know, I found the richness of my heritage there, which was, it's so valuable. It's the greatest treasure I could find.
Was it better of an experience than you thought it would be? Or?
Way more. I didn't even know I was searching for the purpose of life for years and years, and I did not know what it was. And then this rabbi taught the most bizarre answer, that the purpose of life is to experience the greatest pleasure possible. That doesn't sound like what you would think a rabbi would say, but that's because we think of pleasure as being hedonistic, but really what is the greatest pleasure? The greatest pleasures are the spiritual pleasures. Those are the ones that last and last. So that's what I was able to find in Israel. And I want to share that that's really the purpose of life. We forget that so easily, that the purpose of life is to experience the greatest pleasure possible. We're really here to have a wonderful time.
And the most fascinating person that you've ever met in your life?
I'm gonna pick Rabbi Noah Weinberg because that's who taught me this. Yes.
Nice.
So.
Okay. Do you think that someone not under the same spiritual beliefs as you would have a good time and learn a lot in Israel?
Oh, for sure. There is something so, I want to say, beyond magic about Israel. It's a very mystical place. It's a very, people that are not, everybody is a spiritual being. I think that it resonates with the spirituality in every person. Everybody feels it. there's something about Jerusalem that's the heart of the world. Like in these ancient maps, I saw Jerusalem was the heart of the world. It's so fascinating to me, you know. There's something very extraordinary going on there, and I think everybody